Oh, there I am. Welcome, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful Thursday. Uh, pre, um, pre Christmas Eve. I'm excited for Christmas Eve as well as Christmas because we have a lot of food and celebration going on. Um, I believe I've put on the schedule that I'm taking a break during Christmas because I'll be spending time with my family, and I hope you all get to also spend time with your family, loved ones, eat lots of good food, get presents, because the greatest present I could have asked for was the unification of the German state in 1848. Welcome, everyone. Let me say hello to everyone who has messaged so far. Welcome, Jordan. Congratulations on redeeming first. I believe Jordan is still streaming, so that's why he's not here. Quite funny, though, because that he went in, claimed first, and then left. Didn't even apologize to Jax. How rude, how rude. Hello, Jax. And hello, Galaxy Pox. Welcome to the stream. Hope you're all doing well. Today, I am doing a presentation on my senior capstone on the German revolutions of 1848. The paper will be available. I do believe I have a non-docs version that I can share and link. Jordan and I must meet in an honorable single combat in For Honor. You guys are also both in Canada. So, what you could do is go to his home, unplug his router, claim first. Oh, tactical advantage. The tech priest would smile upon it. Not even unplug his router. You talk to his router. You talk to the machine spirit within, and you try to negotiate for it to be off at the beginning of my streams. Ooh. In return for something. It wants violence. It always wants violence. Here we go. The copy of the Ruination of Romance. So, the paper is free of docs. 41 pages. It's not a very light read, but feel free to read it if you don't want to listen to lecture, and vice versa if you want to learn more about the period or see specifically what I wrote. Because first half of lecture I'm going to set up the period. Second half of lecture I'm going to go about what I actually researched and some of the highlights from it. I'm not going over every single example, but just enough to like kind of frame my argument and my thesis. So I'm very excited for that. Also, it's going to be a little bit. It's going to be definitely a little political. So I want to encourage the idea that we are here to have safe, open academic discussion. Why am I awake? Welcome, Mike. Good morning or good evening. I don't know what time it is for you, but hope you're hope you're having a good time. How you doing, Mike? Long time no see. I had 45-ish. Now I can be embarrassed if professor ever writes page numbers on the board. Oh yeah, now you can't be embarrassed. Yeah. Okay, guys, backstory. Our capstone professor, at one point in the semester, she wrote the page numbers for everyone's rough drafts on the board. So I don't know, to either shame us or encourage us or something, or like yeah. But basically, yeah, as I was saying, this is gonna get a little political. It may seem a little right leaning, because of my thesis, but a very TLDR of my thesis is that democracy is not always the answer. It might seem a little right leaning, but I'm trying to present factual evidence rather than a political counter argument, if that kind of makes sense. I'm not trying to delve into a lot of political science. I'm just trying to show that we can study this period to contrast the idea that democracy isn't always the answer. Furthermore, we're going to get into some interesting topics, such as because 1848 is ignored, it led to Hitler. Even people after 1848 predicted a future of a future Hitler. Used a spitball to shoot Jax's head. Dang, everyone is going after Jax these days. And also wrote this command, "Das Bierhaus." Dude, Jax is just getting bullied. If this was an actual classroom, Jordan's coming here taking his seat in class every day. Oh, speaking of taking seats in class, me and Galaxy Pox, we have a classmate whose their seat just keeps getting taken by this one random pre-farm. And like they they don't like that. Oh, Jammy? Jammy? Well, Jammy? Did you Did you misclick? Oh my lord. Thank you so much, Jammy, for all the gifts.
Just gifted 5 subs.
Oh my god. Niece has more money than I do? Merry early Christmas. Thank you, Jamby. I'm going to send these 5 subs all the way back to you. You are the Jesus to Mickey's God. You support Jax. Dude, you also got, you got Yuna, you got Jeremy, Vinci, and you got 5 regulars. Wow. You retract your statement. Yes, make sure, if you are one of Jammy's parents, you give her a home ball. Make sure you give Jammy red packet money. But without further ado, I forgot how I got this set up. I didn't test anything, as you can see, but let's see if this works. Oh, Pog. I guess this is it. Oh, yep, sweet. Everything works. Ooh, and it's framed correctly. Dude, this is so cool. I'm actually doing the lecture with a academic theme overlay. But any questions for me before we start? Like I said, the framework for today's lecture is that I'm going to be giving about 6 slides of background on the German revolutions of 1848. We're going to be taking a small break, probably 5 to 10 minutes, and then we are going to have a second part of lecture is actually delving into my own research. Ew, homework? Exactly. I hate homework. Imagine doing homework. Dude, that's going to be me next semester. I'm going to completely senioritis and not do anything. I am professor. I know homework. Exactly. You love history? Ooh, perfect. Actually, something really interesting. I don't have my desk here. Hang on, let me go grab my desk really quick. I want the desk. There we go. And then Capcom on. Boom. Big kitten. Now someone say something in chat. The kitten will wave at you. It'll be big epic. Oh, also, this video would be available on as a YouTube VOD 24 hours after this stream ends. Last week's VOD is already up on YouTube, and that was Galaxy Pox's senior capstone on the. I was about to say the Ruination of Romance, but Satanic Panic, Moral Turmoil in the U.S. Farclad teaches history. What a time to be alive! Exactly. This is indeed one of the best times to be alive. But anyway, without further ado, if there are no further questions, this is my senior capstone on the German revolutions of 1848. I have titled my capstone paper, The Ruination of Romance, Democracy's Failure in the German Revolutions of 1848. And in my own paper, I don't start all the way in the Enlightenment, but I think for this presentation, I'm going to start here. I'm not going to go into very much detail about things that are kind of common knowledge, so I'm going to be kind of skimming over events such as the French Revolution and the Enlightenment here. Most of you already know kind of the gist of what's going on in this period. It's the period of a European philosophical thought where they're trying to promote the ideals of democracy, individual sovereignty, radicalism. We have a few famous figures here, such as Thomas Hobbes and René Descartes, who pioneered the famous saying, cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. And this really frames this this period in European history because they start thinking rationally, as well as it combines with the idealisms of trying to promote individual sovereignty. And it really plays in to the events that happen right after it, and that is the American and French Revolution. The American War of Independence takes place 75 years after briefly when the Enlightenment begins, based heavily on the idea of individualized freedom. And it kind of the looking kind of, oh man, this is gonna be so distracting, but feel free to continue talking in chat. I welcome the distractions. Since this is a Twitch stream, we can keep it as memey as possible. I don't have to like sit in front of a giant crowd and talk for 15 minutes straight. But American War of Independence, heavily based on the ideals of the Enlightenment, and same things with the French Revolution, driven by the middle class, wanting to promote their own individual rights that they weren't getting in a absolutist monarchy type of government. And furthermore, it's because of these two specific events that it had a huge impact on the international stage. And I believe most countries study either one of the American or French revolutions or both. No, you will not be exactly. You cannot silence Galaxy Pox in this chat. But furthermore, these two countries kind of supplant liberal roots and the ideas of democracy, and it comes into play later in 1848 because these countries have already existed for a period of time, having a successful nation, in air quotes, or a semi-successful nation that has been able to operate on ideals of democracy. And also, I want to point out the idea that because of these two specific periods, Europe viewed liberal revolutions very, very negatively because they associated violent revolution and liberal grassroots as the same thing. And they pointed at France, specifically because of the Jacobins' reign of terror and how they were just executing nobles left and right, that it is because of the liberals that are trying to claw their way to power and supplant themselves as the ideal form of government that will cause them to cause murder on this such a scale. Yes, it was definitely messy. I picked this particular image because it's the execution of Louis XIII. And basically, because of the mass and rampant murders, Europe contained France until the reign of Napoleon, and in an attempt to curb the revolutionary fervor. So they looked down upon the ideas of the Enlightenment in a sense, and that is conservative Europe. So the kingdoms of Prussia, Austria, Great Britain, Russia, Spain, they all wanted to keep the monarchies and keep their powers because the liberal governments wanted to spread individual freedoms, which means there would be more democratic powers and more power into the people rather than the crown. Yeah, just class disparity sucked. It was monstrous. Kids were executed. Executions were days for family fun and picnics. Yeah, you take your family out. Some old white guy is getting his head cut off. He's yelling "Sacre Bleu." It's overall funny time. But also, what's come out of the left is its impact on art, media, and culture, because the whole romantic art movement comes out of this period as well, starting in the 1800s. The five main tenets are: it tried to inspire an interest in the common man and in the childhood, a strong sense of emotion and feeling, and awe of nature, celebration of the individual, and importance of the imagination. Many of you may recognize this piece of art, The Wanderer Above the Sea of Fog, contemplating romantic solitude. This is kind of, I picked this image because it really symbolizes the ideals of romantic freedom. And unfortunately, the tenets of the American and French Revolution, in my own opinion, they were founded on romanticized ideals. This idea of we're going to wave flags, have a revolution, fight against the oppressive monarchies that have governed us for so long. And because they're founded on ideals, it did not lead to long-term periods of stability. Fuck you, person named Louis. Do you have any idea how it narrows it down? Yeah, dude, by the time we were on the 13th, then it's kind of fucked. Especially considering some of the other Louis had fucked their own family and stuff. But anyway, this whole idea of founding new nations or founding new systems of government based purely off of romanticized ideals, it was sufficient for countries like America and France, because by the time you hit 1775, 1789, the ideals of the Enlightenment and overall nationhood were not as developed as they will be coming into the era of industrialization. So part of the reason why the German revolutions of 1848 will fail is because the ideals are no longer sufficient in order of founding a nation. You see the image a lot when searching for Ubermensch or Bionic Hero. Yes, because I actually touched a little bit of this in some earlier history lectures, but part of the Enlightenment philosophy that comes out is not only the idealized stuff, but the hard rational stuff. There is a philosopher known as Friedrich Nietzsche that me and Galaxy Pox have studied in our European history classes, and he believed in this idea called the primeval human, and that the primeval human is mentally stronger and morally capable of making their own decisions based on just personal experience, whereas the modern human They have herd mentalities. They rely on institutions to guide their own judgment, such as their church, their education. Whereas back in the day, man had to make his own decision. So this man in particular, he has risen above the fog. As you can see, there's many interpretations you can take from this, but he has risen above the fog because he has the moral capability to choose. When you think something is bad, is it because your parents or your church or or the media has told you, or is it because you came to that conclusion on your own? And if you are able to come to the conclusion on your own, you have broken free of the herd and you are truly free or individually sovereign. But also, I would take it with like a 50-50 grain of salt, because Nietzsche also is, according to our professor, he was put in a mental asylum. You've seen that image of a 4-hour long romantic classical music playlist? Yes, this is really popular. Saying fuck you to any of these Henrys or Charles in English monarchy is also hard. Oh yeah, true. Because like half of them are good and half of them are bad. I remember in Tudor and Stuart England, there was the really fat one that got knocked off of his horse in jousting. They had to amputate his leg. I remember, that's the one I remember. But anyways, going forward to Napoleon's reign from 1804 to 1815, more so in 1812, because of the liberal grassroots movement that's happened in France due to the revolution. When Napoleon started to conquer Europe, he brought the ideals of the revolution to everywhere he touched. So when he fought a successful campaign in Spain, created the Confederation of the Rhine in Germany, invaded Prussia, had a war with Austria, and fought at the Battle of Austerlitz as well, before the invasion of Europe. All these countries are now introduced to Enlightenment philosophy, when their previous method was trying to contain it and utterly rejected because it was of liberal standing. And this is the first time that these countries have experienced anything along the lines of liberal statescraft. They were able to have a say, in air quotes, in particular issues or certain elections. They had deputies that would represent their regions. And all of this increased the amount of public involvement in politics. Now, it wasn't a pure conversion, and it wasn't a pure thrust of the public into politics, but the German states under Napoleon, they were like, hang on, this is kind of cool. We're not forced to live like this forever. We can actually have issues resolved in our society. But after Napoleon's failed campaign in Russia in 1814, the Russians pushed him back. You may remember Napoleon's long retreat. The monarchical powers push Napoleon back, and balance of power was restored in 1815 after Waterloo. You've always found that, oh, hey, Nietzsche connects our projects in a way. Yeah, exactly. The primeval human and Satanism. I always found that concept from Nietzsche interesting and compelling, but I still have some disagreements with it. But enough of that, more on Germany. Well, we can talk more about Nietzsche as always, because I think he's a really interesting case, because maybe his psychotic nature is kind of what made him also more able to make his own moral decisions, in air quotes, right? But I digress. In 1815, Europe was tasked with, how do we reset? How do we redistribute the balance of power? How do we make sure that the liberals, and specifically liberals trying to supplant themselves into a position of power, like Napoleon was a commoner, and he rose all the ways up, became a tyrant, and crowned himself emperor of France when they started as a republic. How do we prevent that from happening again? So their idea was divide the power up, split up Germany. It was no longer one entire unified state temporarily. And they believed that through this treaty called the Congress of Vienna, and it's the picture on the left, that they needed to supplant anything and suppress all media or ideas that will convey another revolution, more spread of liberal ideals. And this is all coming from the right. So it's coming from the landowners, the wealthy, the aristocrats. the people that want monarchies to stay, individuals that don't want to industrialize necessarily, or maybe to keep feudal structures. No matter, Nietzsche is undoubtedly one of the biggest names in Western philosophy. Yes, that's true. That and would you guys argue Freud? Because we did touch on Freud a bit, but I'm very shaky on philosophy names. If you say them, I'll be like familiar, but I don't know like what's the sole big ones. But anyway, fuck Freud. I'm gonna beat his ass in hell. Yo, that reminds me of a meme of the Doomslayer. Like, is a clip of the Doomslayer fighting a bunch of demons, and he was like, "Where's Ronald Reagan? Guten Nacht, hello, welcome, guten Abend, Frau Presidente, welcome, welcome, you know. Hope you're doing well." But anyway, under Napoleon, when he was ruling over portions of Europe in 1812, das Bierhaus, indeed. All of these liberal institutions bled into the infrastructure that he imposed, ruling over certain German states. So the universities, the curriculum centered more toward Enlightenment thinking and more leftist thinking. It bled into the press and the art, as we saw into the romantic picture of the standing above the sea of fog a few slides ago. And the tensions between the political right and left, they were pretty strained coming into the French Revolution. They're even more at odds right now. And they're especially at each other's throats. If any of you guys have played TF2, two of the spies' weapons come from this period. Because Metternich, one of the architects of the Congress of Vienna, he runs a lot of Cloak and Dagger and L'Étranger, spy network campaigns against trying to suppress liberal ideas and thought to ensure that another French Revolution wouldn't happen. I've suffered the TF2 bot plague, yes. But yeah, I found it really interesting when I was researching this period, and I found all these like synopsises back to TF2, because I'm like, oh hey, I grew up on that. That was pretty cool. But yeah, this was a big turning point in European history, because it will decide the fate of how European nations would play out for the rest of the 18th, 19th, and 20th century, because it's right here whether or not they would kind of keep some of these same ideals coming into World War One, and that's, you know, a whole 100 years after. And some countries were able to pivot. You know, they would be met by strife, caused by social problems, political turmoil, all that good stuff. Some countries were able to pivot and recede back to their liberal grassroots movements, create democracies, create stable nation states, and others failed to turn. And Germany is one of those countries that's really unique, because not only does it fail to turn, but it goes on a completely different path than every other European country. And also because of 1815 and all the suppressions to liberty. And this is Europe-wide. In France, it leads to another French Revolution that's not really focused upon. This picture on the right, some of you may notice it and you'd be like, oh yeah, it's the French Revolution. Not many know, it's the second French Revolution. And on top of that, fun fact, this is the album cover to Coldplay's Viva La Vida. There was a second French Revolution, exactly. The people were that fed up with the suppressions of liberty after 1815. Because they love to revolt. Not only that, Jax, you ready for this? There's a third French Revolution. Let's go. Let's go. We love to see it. The revolution has never stopped. But you can tell also, this is the second French Revolution, but it's funny because Coldplay uses this as their album cover, and the song Viva La Vida talks about the first French Revolution, even though all their art comes from the second one. This picture is also in Animal Crossing. Goddamn French revolving store state. Jax, you want to know something funny? Later in this presentation, I'm going to be talking about this thing called what Bismarck calls the French cycle, and you can you can kind of imagine what that's hinting at. But we'll get into more of that later. But it led to widespread political turmoil. The suppressions of liberty were not liked by anyone, but the conservatives saw it as necessary to prevent the idea of another liberal movement from taking over. Bismarck was truly a genius. Oh yes, we're going to address Bismarck a little later. But because of all the suppressions nationwide, it was very, very interesting to study this, because it's not that the French revolutionaries were talking to Germans and the Germans talking to the Austrians or talking to Italy. 1848, it was a nationwide spontaneous revolution. So when it happened, it spread it everywhere and it was all independent. And I think that's one of the coolest parts of European history, for it was something instigated not because I was influenced by another person, but because I wanted to truly revolt at this time. And it was, in Japanese, they call it the Sangatsu Kakume, or the March Revolutions, because it was truly a period in European history where all of them, all together collectively, Europe was in turmoil. And I use the magic word, big hype, big hype. Anyway, I'm going to give a brief... Oh, I skipped a slide. I'll give a brief history now of the German revolutions of 1848. You guys have gotten a taste of what happened, such as the suppressing of liberties. I'll go into a few specifics, some examples. Revolution, exactly. In 1819, the German governments... By the way, at this point, Germany has been split into several states to redistribute the balance of power. So it's not a unified Germany. We still have kingdoms like Prussia, Austria, Frankfurt, Baden, Württemberg, Bavaria. So in 1819, they instill what's called the Carlsbad Decrees, and they basically have party officials going into universities, and they decide the curriculum. It's not the universities that decide the curriculum anymore, it's the state. And I find it quite funny because Stalin takes this approach when he runs Russia. And I'm like, oh, he borrowed that. But anyway, the education was curbed so that it would not promote liberal ideals. Students really didn't like that. They also suppressed the freedom to assembly. They didn't want any protests. And they also had party members inside the presses. And so no newspaper could print something without approval from the state first. And also, following the downfall of Napoleon, the balance of power of Europe dictated that French needed to go back to a monarchy. And so the next in line was another Louis, part of what they call the Bourbon monarchy. And the Bourbon monarchy was not very well received at all in France. And after 1830, another powder keg was lit. I've already talked about the Second French Revolution. A third one occurs, respectively. And because of it, Louis, bark, 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 bark. But because of it, this was another unique revolution where it was instigated mostly by liberals and citizens and the common man. So people across Europe thought, maybe we can do it too. When Germany did it, it set an example as the other German city-states could also participate in the revolutions and be successful against the monarchical armies. And the people erected barricades, and they fought against their respective monarchies. So there was street fighting in Berlin, Austria, Vienna, all the major German cities. And this image taken here is a chalk lithograph of kind of an illustration of what's going on. So it's very interesting here. Do I have a cursor? Oh, I do have a cursor. So the black, red, and gold German flag, this actually originates from the Napoleonic period, because the black, red, and gold was the flag of the student union that was sent to fight against Napoleon in the German armies. And they were black, red, and gold because it stood for their fraternities. And because they fought for the nation's freedom, the German revolutionaries adopted the same colors. However, there is two different types of flags here. We have the horizontal tricolor and the vertical tricolor here. They stand for two very different things because the revolutionaries were still torn on what type of government they wanted. They just wanted to fight to make sure that, they could get what they want first. But all the groups were united at first to try to revolt against the monarchies. So the horizontal one wanted a constitutional monarchy adopting the British system, where we would have a parliament and have elected officials that would govern the king. And the king would have checks and balances on the parliament, and together they would work together to have more successful nation, taking power away from the crown. The vertical tricolor. They wanted the French model. They wanted a republic, more also to akin to the American model, where they wanted full democracy. I vote. I'm able to vote on legislation, XYZ, have it pass, elect my own leaders. And originally, these two groups, they don't see eye to eye, but they like I said, they initially fought together so that they could they could overthrow the monarchies. Now, following the revolutions, they're actually successful at first at pushing away the conservative powers, and the conservative powers are like, you know what? Okay, fine. We'll draft a constitution. We'll have a parliament. We'll take power away from the crown. You guys can decide on legislation. So everyone's like, oh, this is all well and good. And in Germany, they unified it under what they call the Frankfurt Parliament. And the Frankfurt Parliament was like, okay, so to decide on legislation, anywhere in Germany, just have a constituent assembly gather together and sign a petition of what legislation you want to get passed. Worst fucking idea in history. So what happened after that was a bunch of one-issue constituent assemblies came up, and because this is the first time that individuals in the public are able to participate in politics, they are not only uneducated, but they are unaware of how to solve their own social problems. So there are feudalists, there are artisans, and there are other individuals that you're like, you know what? Let's make let's draft a petition to go back to feudalism. Yeah, I can have all my artwork back. I'm not gonna have a factory take away my job. Yeah, let's go back to feudalism. The parliament will get it done. So they get massive amounts of signatures from the peasant and working class that still need to be protected by feudal guilds. And you know, the big problem with that is that the parliament is run by liberals that want industrialization. And they're like, wait a second, we can't just say no to industrialization and go regress back to a feudal state. That's like counterintuitive to this whole idea of progressing and going toward the future. So they just say no to the like 2.3 million signatures to of all the people that want to have protected rights under guilds and stuff. And furthermore, other things such as the church wants to bring back their own power because it's greatly diminished since back in the day when, you know, the church was sponsoring the Reconquest, sponsoring exhibitions to South America, gentrification of indigenous people in South America too. The church's power has dwindled immensely, and a lot of religious communities want to go back to being in a position of power. But also the liberals, they don't want that either, because, you know, they want people of education to be in position of power. People like professors, lawyers, and doctors, everyone with university education, they want them to be in positions of power, not people who have been by birthright or by name or title or by church. Exactly as Jesus and his apostles wanted. Yeah. But another thing that I've just mentioned here, the idea that the parliament was run by liberals, hugely important because they believed that, you know, you need to be educated in order to be part of the parliament. But here's the thing. A parliament run by professors, professors, lawyers, and doctors, these are all maybe the intelligent people, but it's none of the muscle. They didn't invite like the military leaders because they're part of the nobility. They didn't invite any monarchies or monarchical advisors. So it's I can say this on Twitch because I'm not on the presentation. It's a parliament of pussies, or professor parliament, as some textbooks like to call them. When looking back in history, the church played many, many, many roles. Exactly. So ultimately, they were not only tasked with drafting a constitution for the new German nation, but they were also tasked with trying to resolve hundreds of years of social reform that the people wanted to fix, but yet the people didn't know how to achieve it or what they deeply how they wanted, because this is the first time they've engaged with politics. But this is the German liberals' first time engaging with politics as well, because this is the first time they actually had power. Many rules that St. Peter defined wanted them to do. Ooh, exactly. So not only are they being overburdened with the idea of they need to like found a new nation with people that have no experience doing so, but they were overburdened with all the constituent assemblies that were assembling for single issues, and they were mass petitioning signatures to get what they wanted. And some, most of the time they either turned them down or left them unresolved. They were free and had power and no idea what to do with it and how to make use of it. Exactly. And that's the thing. The liberals came into the power preaching the ideas of the Enlightenment. They were using the same strategy as the French and American Revolution, where they were saying, oh, we're going to guarantee rights, freedom of press, freedom of assembly, right to bear arms. We're going to unify us using nationality. Our God gave us this, gave us Germany, because this is where the Germans speak, and our flag is a representation of our history, right? But all that, the lip service did not pay off, because this period in 1848, we have new ideas called more developmental politics, more social issues that are arising, industrialization. England is already on coal, and they have coal factories as well. And France is slowly starting cannon factories and stuff. So we're kind of getting into the era where also the socialists are now arising as well, and the proletariat is coming out. Marx comes out of this period and he starts the Communist Manifesto based on the effects of industrialization on this mostly agrarian society who had no experience of what industrialization would do or affect European society. Your favorite pope? The ones that corpse was dug up and put on trial. Oh, dude, that's pretty. Can someone Google that? I want to know who the name of that pope is. I'm gonna write it down later. But anyway, as I was saying, the Frankfurt Parliament not run by professionals. So because of it, their ideals were really fell short of being able to run a full country. They got nothing done, and eventually the monarchies were like, these people, they're all fucking pussies. They realized that once they turned down the working class, because I want to put this out here, the European liberals did not like the working class at all. They believe that the peasants, because they had no education, they shouldn't have been in positions of power, right? And because if they had free democracies in a republic like the French system, that means you're giving power to people who are uneducated. They did not want that at all. And it's something that I feel like some modern liberals also don't know. And they also don't understand that that is a core fundamental of European liberalism. And in some respects, certain sectors of liberalism. Because I always see people insult other people online. They're both left leaning that, oh, how can you do this? Oh, these people are, just because they don't have educational standing doesn't mean we take away their freedom of speech or their political power. But this is a core tenet. Link to the Wikipedia. Cadaver Synod. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Hopefully this doesn't open on the main monitor on the presentation. Very cool. It did exactly that. Very hype. But anyway, what was I on? Yes, so the Frankfurt Parliament, they're like, as a last ditch effort, they turned away the largest population of German citizens, the working class, the proletariat, the artisans. So most of Germany is majority, and they're like, we need one last ditch effort to prove that we're in power. So they offered the whole German unified state to the King of Prussia, and he's like, here, we'll do constitutional monarchy. You'll be the King of Germany. And for a little bit, Kaiser Wilhelm the Fourth, he entertained the idea. He wore the German tricolor, but when he realized that the Parliament didn't have their shit together, he sent in the armies, supplanted them all down. The German revolutions of 1848 fail. Nationwide also fail, such as Austria, Czechoslovakia, and the rest other countries. So I believe Italy also doesn't unify until later. France goes back to being a monarchy, but then, as you guys may know, Napoleon III comes around. They're actually okay with being under a monarchy under him, then recycle back to being republic, and we get into that whole messy bit of French history, and then finally we go to World War One. They finally decide, we're gonna stick with republic this time. The French cycle, ladies and gentlemen. But it's a really interesting point in German history because this was their turning point. This is their opportunity to put liberal grassroots into a new country, not only a new country, but the first time that Germany could have been unified. And because the country failed to turn here, because they failed to turn, they don't have liberal grassroots to refer back to. They don't have existing nation states or forms of government that they know are successful. So following World War One in particular, I'm going to bring this up because when the world was ravaged by World War One, especially Germany, who had to abolish their king, they didn't have a successful democracy to turn back to because France, they were okay. They already had a government that was stable in air quotes. They still faced a period of turmoil, but they still existed. Britain still existed for their constitutional monarchy. America was doing pretty okay, pretty peachy after World War One. Germany completely ravaged because not only did they have to turn to it's not a new form of government, but it's one they don't have experience in succeeding in. Some claim that because of this, they follow a path of history that naturally led them to Hitler because they didn't have experience being under a democracy. And I'll be getting later into the presentation of why kind of that's a factor that comes into play into the rise of Hitler. But I want to address before, I think we'll go into a break soon because I'm looking at the time here. 51 minutes, so yeah, this is a good time for a break. I don't want to talk you guys' ears off for this entire time, but I want to address what drew me to this topic. Because I feel like I don't interject enough about like why I'm kind of interested. You can kind of feel the enthusiasm and why I kind of like it. But so I was a Napoleonic reenactor in high school. So when I was deciding a topic for historical imagination, which is supposed to be like a sophomore seminar, I took it my junior year. I wanted to do something along the lines of the French Revolution or Napoleon or a little bit after. I was very interested in World War One Europe or Bismarck. But then I realized, I was studying 1848, the transition period. I'm like, wait, this period's really interesting because it doesn't share the international stage like World War One or the French Revolution or the American Revolution. It's overshadowed. And because it's overshadowed, there's a lot of lessons that people miss. Lessons that, would have prevented certain perhaps political catastrophes that happen in modern day society. And our professor likes to talk about the idea that for those of you who live in America or are familiar with what's happening in America at certain times, that the Capitol was stormed by the Capitol was stormed, and he akins it to a lot of periods such as World War One, 1848, near the end of World War Two, because they're parallel periods of turmoil, and there's a lot of moving factors that that are kind of the same. That it's always followed by a period of social turmoil, reform that doesn't happen, a government that struggles to adapt or pivot, and because of this, there's this constant cycle that continues to happen. Why there has to always be a revolution or something that constantly changes the European consciousness. So I found this period really interesting. I started this the paper in historical imagination, and then I continued it as my senior thesis, and that's where I am today. Also, fun fact: my mentor for this project, he keeps forgetting that I don't speak German. So he recommended. I asked him this question about this thing called the Sonderweg, and he's like, "Oh, just read this 1,500-page volume series. You'll get its idea." You can see him, yeah, dude. And like, I was like, "Oh, I don't speak German." He's like, "Oh shit, is there no translated version?" He's like, "Oh, I guess not. Oops." But anyway, very cool book. I can recommend it to you guys later after the break. But we'll be taking a break now. I'm gonna be going into my my presentation after the break. I'm gonna still be here. I'm just gonna be drinking water because I've been talking for 55 minutes straight. And feel free to continue to ask questions. I'll post a link to the Deutsche Staffelnacke. It's the social German history from, I believe, 715 to modern day Germany, which is really, really cool. And there's a reason why it's so long and only in German. But fun fact for you, Galaxy Pox, the reason why he recommended me that book was because apparently, I'll call him Dr. A from now. But Dr. A, his students in Germany were disciples of him, of that author. And he was like, it was really cool, seeing these students and then reading the book, and they're like, oh, so that's why they think like this. But anyway, yeah, we're gonna take a 5 to 10 minute break. I'll be back. I'll play some lo-fi. Feel free to message the chat. I'll still be here. I'll just be drinking water. I'll still be interacting, but let me turn on some lo-fi, and then we'll have a good little intermission here. Use the bathroom, get some snacks, and I'll be right back. Okay, and anyways, we're back. Welcome back. I hope you guys have got a chance to use the bathroom, got some snacks, get comfy, because we're getting into the juice now. My research and what I have found out about in the period. Because now, if you guys aren't aware of the context, you can go into the videos on the channel and rewatch. Actually, let me turn off the lo-fi just in case it's too loud. You can go look up on the context. We've had the first half of lecture go over what everything you need to know, and now you'll see from that background what I found in my research. I'm also kind of lost here. Hang on, let me find all my stuff. Here's my screen share. Yep, there we go. Now we're back, I believe. Here we go. Okay, so going back into it. These are my research questions. What I wanted to address in my research paper. I wanted to answer why did the revolution fail, because it wasn't simple enough just to say that the professor parliament wasn't able to get anything done, conservative armies destroyed everything, revolution failed. I believe there was a lot of deeper factors that kind of led to the revolution's failure. I really like the art you chose for this slide. Oh yeah, same. I'm gonna get into this in a second, and I want to answer, was the revolution doomed to fail from the start? Because a lot of people like introspectively look at, say, the American Revolution or the French Revolution and say, oh yeah, because of XYZ factors, we could have saw that it was destined to go like this or destined to go like this. But there were a few people that believed even before 1848, like especially in 1819, that if someone said that if liberals started a revolution, it's not going to succeed if it's just liberals that started, right? So, and I also wanted to address the idea is, are there contemporary parallels that can be drawn to 1848 and other periods of history? Because how many times do we see liberal movements in American society based off of purely ideals try to go and go tiptoe and try to start national movements? Hindsight is 2020 and all that, yes. Now I want to point at certain examples here. I'm going to say kind of the thing that was in the back of my head. Donald Trump. Donald Trump's campaign in 2016, very much based on ideals, yet the movement succeeded because ideals are easy to get behind, but plans are not. Because when you say just an ideal, you can easily get people behind it because if it appeals to emotions and it appeals to idealism, and oh yeah, that's XYZ is something that I want, right? Scary part is that most people will bandwagon onto that, but there's no evidence that it will succeed long term. And we can see in the storming of the Capitol in the U.S. that's also customary of what's happening in American politics. Now coming into my thesis, the big thesis that I've been trying to answer through my paper is that democracy is not always the answer. The concept of romantic revolutions also ends, and that political realism is the forefront of modern statescraft. And what I mean by democracy is not always the answer is that I don't think democracy should be available in societies where education or the collective consciousness of political behaviors have not been instilled. I believe that it's successful in American and French societies because the education levels are at that point where we can give the people the vote because they have a general idea of what's going on, what issues that affect them. But in Germany in 1848 and other periods in history, American Revolution, French Revolution, those societies are not as complex. But once we get into 1848, it becomes much more complex. Then you send the public into a political sphere that they have no idea and how to deal with. Recipe for disaster. So in my opinion, you should not give democracy to individuals that do not have any idea how to use it, as evidenced by the Frankfurt Parliament. What I mean by the concept of the Romantic Revolutions, idealism is not ideals are not a good foundation for political statescraft. Yes, it's good to have culture, art, and nationalistic ideas that go behind countries, but it shouldn't be what the country is based on. What about the modern societies as a whole? Modern societies as a whole have gotten pretty good because I believe most countries either have a partial trust in the public to help run the country, or they have no faith in the public and completely control them. I'll use American society, Canadian society, British, German, French society. Those are all examples of democracies where they can exist and they have faith in that they can put power in the people's hands. But Russia, China, totalitarian states, North Korea, they don't have this. They don't want to give full educations to the populace. They don't want the collective consciousness to be high to the point where they want to break away from communism. They, as a state, want to control everything, so they do not want to put power in the people's hands, even though their platform stands for the idea of proletariat utopias. And that kind of might be a little right leaning, but it's kind of the facts that communism is established to that a strong state is the one that guides the people until it is no longer needed and the people can exist in their own utopia. But until then, the dictatorships must stand. So democracies will definitely not succeed there. But political realism is the forefront of modern statecraft. Really important because you can't just have a movement based off of ideals. You need to have plans behind it. You need to have the government run by professionals, not by individuals who are like, oh, this is my third son. This is the professor from XYZ University who studies science. He's a smart guy. Yeah, he can run a nation. It's something that Bismarck will address, and it's a term he calls realpolitik. More on that later. And what I want to address now is the historiography, or what are authors saying about the period. I want to address a few of these because they're really important to how I think 1848 has been studied as a period of history, because we don't see a lot of this coming up in modern U.S. textbooks, modern European textbooks even. Maybe Germany definitely studies it, but as a political whole, people remember much more of World War I, World War II, and in some cases the U.S. as well. But Theodore Hamrow, he's written on the art and literature culture of 1848 and how that's kind of influenced the whole idea of how people are just surrounded by all these ideals. They see beautiful artwork and they're like, yes, the revolution can succeed. It's something beautiful. It's something romantic. But, that's not the reality. Donald J. Mattheisen, University of Massachusetts, he studies the idea of political fragmentation and that the idea of oppositional politics with a country so young as newly formed Germany, that was not a recipe for success. Kind of hard to blame them. World War One was yes, that too. World War One is very much more remembered, but also because 1848 is ignored, it kind of led to some of the downfalls of World War One. Jonathan Sperber, some new publication. This is 2010. He comes from University of Missouri. I wanted to be one of his disciples. I emailed him as well, but he only teaches undergrad, so I don't get an opportunity to be one of his disciples in grad school. But he writes about the experience on the ground, and he argues that the common people have been thrust into political life for the first time in German history, and the ideals of democracy, they were so new to them that they didn't know what to do with it, right? And then Michael Rapport, this is the interesting one. His argument is that at the core of any revolution, it must always address the social question. And if you do not sufficiently address the social question, you are doomed to fail to the very thing that you promise to fix in your movement. And he also addresses the idea of the Sonderweg. And I'll type this in chat because it's very, very interesting if you Google this. But the Sonderweg, in German, it means the special path. And that there's been this conversation until 2000 to 2010 among historians that Germany has followed a special path unlike any other in Europe. And that it's because that countries like Britain, France, America, they succeed because they had liberal grassroots to turn to. But Germany, things like industrialization, laissez-faire, free markets, democracy, they were instituted by the right, the conservatives. The social question, I might have typed it wrong, but the Sonderweg, or the special path. So Germany has all these liberal institutions that were imposed by the right. So it's fundamentally a right-left country, whereas all the other countries are in liberal or left-wing governments. And it's really scary because for a while they believed the idea that because Germany had right-leaning roots, it would no doubt have led to Hitler. Either that, and some argue that it's because they broke away from the special path that democracy didn't succeed and it led to Hitler. Those are the two arguments. It was put to rest in 2000 and 2010 because there's a lot more issues and focus on that period now. But my own research, it fits into these ideas by trying to group all the factors that have happened in 1848 and address really why why the revolution failed, because together it is partially in due to art and literature culture promoting ideals. It is partially in fault of political fragmentation, not being able to deal with oppositional politics in the government. It is, in fact, also because the public wasn't ready to be thrust in politics, and I don't want to bring back up the idea of the Sonderweg, considering it's been put to rest, but I do agree that Germany has been on a path of history that is unlike any other in Europe, and because of the way it's experienced history, this is the reason why it's different. So the primary sources and research methods that I've kind of dealt with are the reminiscence of Karl Schurz. Schurz is a very interesting case because he's a German revolutionary. He was a student during the revolution, and he initially wanted a constitutional monarchy, but after the revolutions failed and he took part in trying to take away power from the working class, he had to flee to America. And he was like, you know what, maybe a republic was a better form of government where we would have provided more power to the working class. Because when he was in America, he came in, boom, American Civil War, and he realized that, kind of the same societal oppressions were happening, where the issue of slavery was something really prominent in America, and it was almost a parallel period of captivity. Another source that I looked at was the memoirs of Prince Metternich. Metternich was one of the architects of the Congress of Vienna, 1815. So he's one of the conservatives that actually wanted to keep the balance of power of Europe, wanted conservatives to stay in power, and he didn't want another French Revolution for taking on. And something really interesting is that he predicts, all the conservatives have some wild predictions, but Metternich and Bismarck have some really wild ones that I want to highlight. I took memoirs from certain radical groups because the radical groups, some of them actually we take into our modern statescraft, especially in the U.S. I analyzed certain political documents of 1848, and I also analyzed art and poetry because that's you always gotta look at the art to see how the collective consciousness is being shaped. But anyway, I want to focus on these highlights of my research was the warning signs, and that Metternich, he believes that in 1819, before 1848, that a revolution that copies the French Revolution based on liberals will not succeed in a future age. And it was a shared sentiment throughout conservative Europe. To read the quote on the slide, we see the members of this class, the middle class, assuming every type of mask, uniting or splitting as the need arises, tearing each other apart. This is the class which has seized the press and which has so far forgotten itself as to advocate murder in reference to the French Revolution. He completely distrusts the idea of liberals being able to have a revolution that's non-violent and create a successful form of government. He believes that most of them are, because they're middle class, their nature is they pursued an education to rise in power and wealth. So they will do the same and when they make a new government. And furthermore, he believed the bourgeoisie, the middle classes, were unfit to govern because they had no history of being able to run a country. They would either be too soft to get anything done or resort to violence to achieve their goals, as evidenced by the French Revolution. And furthermore, he believed that Europe has succeeded for a very, very long time on the monarchical structure. There's no reason to abolish it now. He's like, social reform has to be something slowly imposed to be successful. Also, something I want to address in the Italian sector, Italy also went into a revolutionary fervor. That Giuseppe Mazzini, he's a Italian revolutionary. He believes in the idea that nationalism is a key unifying force, but it's a key unifying force against the conservatives. But here's the thing, it only unifies by nationality. So the Italians were alone when the conservative forces of Europe came to overtake them. So there's already divisional barriers that are coming up. If only social reform could be slow and smoothly done. Yes, this is what Metternich wanted. He believed that, if you have the French cycle where we want to create all these social reforms, let's kill a bunch of people, we'll restart the country, we'll do it in a short amount of time. He believed that's not the way to do it. He believed if it's slow, if it's introduced, this is the way Europe has done it. And it's done so successfully for the last 800 years, even longer. But the idea of unification by nationalism is very important to remember for later in the presentation. But after the revolutions fail, the reflections on it are another highlight of the research I wanted to share with you guys. So Schertz, one of the revolutionaries I mentioned earlier, he believed that because they turned away the working class, even though they didn't have an education, he realized that they're really the key in order to create a successful nation, and that they shouldn't have turned them away, but rather lended them a helping hand, given them the education necessary, included them in the discussion, so that furthermore that the next generation will be able to have the collective conscience in order to participate in government. Unfortunately, when I've seen people want to change governments and nations, such patience is non-existent in collectives. Exactly, because when people are at the apex of power, they want to stay in power. They won't ensure that the whole nation as a whole will stay at the apex. They themselves just want be there for political greed, and such has been true in Haiti in 2010, 2008, 1917. It's maintained its kind of role in history. But Schertz has noted that at first the establishment of a constitutional monarchy with well-secured civil rights would have been quite satisfactory to us, but the reaction made many of us believe there was no safety for popular liberty except in a republic. So he realized that because of the nature of monarchical Europe, not only were they not ready, but it was either full commitment or no commitment. You should either have a full democracy and try to resolve things, or you have a monarchy that has everything decided for you, because there is no in between. There's not going to be a constitutional monarchy that will succeed in a country that has no experience in doing so, because you either must adapt to the social change, or you must stay with how things are and not change, because doing a mixture of both will lead to disaster. There's no protection for either side there. And also going into Bismarck now, we get into the realpolitik. He has a very, very scary a prediction for the course of history, because Bismarck comes after 1848. And for those of you who don't know, Bismarck actually succeeds in unifying Germany in the Austro-Prussian War and the Franco-Prussian War, 1871, taking Alsace-Lorraine. And he creates a unified nation state. He's the big poster boy on all my starting screens and all the other things on this channel. But he believes that, he says this really interesting quote in the memoirs, that's scarily black or white for something like politics. Oh yeah, very true. The wheel of history will revolve again and again, and always to dictatorship, to despotism, to absolutism, because in the end, the masses yield to the need of power. And he uses this to describe the idea of what he called the French cycle, in which a people will revolt because they want a social reform, and based purely on ideals. Yet when they realize that those ideals don't create a successful nation, they will yield back to a king or a monarchy or a larger body of power to help make those hard decisions for them. And he realizes that you need to incorporate the idea of constitutional monarchy, or at least giving them the illusion that democracy is something that they have a say in government. Because Bismarck was a conservative. He wanted Europe to progress. He wanted to have parts of the liberal ideology without completely sending Germany back into another revolution that was ultimately going to fail. He instituted slow reforms because he believed in realpolitik. You need to face the music, and you need to have professionals run the government. The need for security wins out because people ultimately they want to live in a peaceful society. That and they don't want to be political 24/7. They want to know that their government is successful. So if you when Bismarck was in a position of power, he said that he would, give democracy. He would give the people what they want. He gave the idea of a unified Germany. Behind the scenes, he kept the king. He kept conservative statesmen. He kept the military. He put the military in positions of power. He noted that there still needs to be a balance between popular liberties and the traditions that have kept Europe successful. I don't want to be political 24/7, man. I wish that were true someday. Yeah, true. I think it's like it's very different nowadays. Very, very different. But this is where it gets a little tricky because in Germany, now all the things that the liberals promised are now being done by the right instead of the left. So Germany fundamentally goes under a conservative change, yet is adopting liberals ideologies. The ideas of education, freedom of press, social mobility, breaking apart class and social divides, trying to also improve industrialization. Germany, as you guys know, coming to World War One, they're an industrial powerhouse, and they're able to outmanufacture even Russia, almost come toe to toe with Britain, and from the Franco-Prussian War in 1871, they know they can beat France. So Germany comes out really, really strong out of Bismarck's reforms, and it's kind of scary the idea that even though they were able to come out on top because of World War One. Sorry, they were able to come out on top. World War One completely derailed that and strayed them from the special path. And when they go back to being a democracy as dictated by Treaty of Versailles, the peace treaty for World War One, they were like, go back to a democracy. In Germany, under the Weimar Republic, they realized, oh crap, we can't keep this together. So they have various plans and they try to keep it together, such as make parlaying with the French, making sure to detente, increasing their amount of foreign legislation, yielding, relying on America to boost their economy. That was what post World War One post World War One Germany looked like. And you dealing with the French, exactly, dealing with the French, but they had to do it, man. They had to do it. They were demanding a lot of reparations. What really fucked them up though was that it was already a very, very loose governmental structure because it was we barely get things done right in our own American society with two-party system. Germany had like 6 to 9 party system in the Weimar Republic, so you can imagine how messy that got. Is it me, or between Britain and Germany, France really liked fighting with its France really just liked fighting. To be fair, they've been doing it for a couple thousand years, so they really like doing so. That used to be the old way. Well, I mean, they kept being fucked up for a long time too. Yeah, that's also true. But I digress. What I was saying earlier about the idea of the Weimar Republic. Knows how to revolt like the French, exactly. Isn't the large party system another reason why Germany fell to fascism? Yes, here we go. This is the part where I'm going to cycle into next. The idea that when you have a party system like that, there was a lot of one-issue parties in Germany. They were going back to the 1848 system that wasn't successful in the first place because they had no... Oh, no worries. This is like the best segue, Jeremy. They were going back to an unsuccessful 1848 system. And eventually, when the U.S. Great Depression happens, it affects Germany as well because they had what they called the Dawes Plan. The Dawes Plan relied that the U.S. economy would help bolster the Germans so they could pay the war reparations. And when their economy collapses, so does Germany's. And the Nazis used that political platform in order to further themselves in the German parliament. And because of the nature of democracy, and you can have those one-issue parties, serve in government, the Nazis went from being like an outcast political party to having 43% of the votes. And by that point, the rest is history, right? So the idea here is that the realpolitik, Bismarck predicts Hitler because he knows that through the cracks in democracy, if you have a government that's unregulated, unchecked, and completely run by the idea of democracy and anything goes, you will no doubt in a period of turmoil go back to having despots, dictators, and people that you abuse power. That and the influence U.S. Said on the party, yeah. Also, I want to go back here quickly. This piece of artwork that Galaxy Pox really liked. This is called The Dance of Death. Huge contrast to look at the difference between the artwork here. Look at the idealized romanticism, the ambiguous nature of what this could mean versus what we see here in the Dance of Death. This is what the revolution have become. They realized that revolution and violence would only bring death. We see death standing on a white horse, coming over the barricades, trampling over death and suffering, waving a flag, people crying all around. They realized that violence was no longer a means. Yeah, straightforward and clear. This, dare I say, is the ruination of romance. The Pale Rider. OMG, is that Stream Elements? Pog Champion. Thank you, Capamon. But this is the real turning point, and when people realize that the ideals and what they've been led to believe over the past 150 years no longer sufficient. And the idealistic virtue should not be the sole guide of statescraft. And because this romantic period ends, people are left wanting and unsure what to do. They don't have, ideas of wait, this failed. Then what do we do next? And it was left to Bismarck to actually give the answer to them. The times are changing. And then once they hit the Weimar Republic after World War One, furthermore, they were like, shit, we don't know what the fuck to do. We have a country that's coming apart. We have an economy that's failing. We have war reparations to pay. We were demilitarized. We don't have our colonies that we got from imperialism to sustain us with resources. We have mass social problems. We have fascists in our country that are gaining political power now. A period of complete turmoil. And I believe that it's because that we do not teach 1848 enough to show that through cracks in democracy, you can have repeats of Hitler, repeats of despots, and parallel periods of turmoil where people who don't quite understand realpolitik, they will be inevitably our downfall. And the democracy is not always the answer in order to give them the right to say what we should happen in government. And now, just to wrap things up a bit, for further research, I kind of wanted to add another section to my paper if I was going to be an honor student, but I decided eventually not. That if there's any Europeans in chat, like our UK Warhammer viewers, let me know. But what has been the European reaction to 1848? Was 1848 a purely European phenomenon? Because we know that happened in America, happened in France. Yeah, what a time in turmoil. And then through the cracks in our own democracy, are we reliving a period of turmoil? That kind of I have kind of addressed already. But let's see, what's on the next slide? Sources? Oh yeah, sources. Well, that was my presentation on the ruination of romance and the German revolutions of 1848. Paper available in my Discord. If you go into the announcements channel and check the pins or scroll up, I have the full paper available without doxing, so I've taken out all my names. 41 page read, quite a bit stiffy one. So definitely not a light reading. You will print it out to consume it. It's very thick. It's about as thick as a finger. Yeah. I've used a lot of sources here, and then all the images on the right, all figured. And then this is what I've used for the presentation. The one on my actual paper is a little longer, but yeah, that was my presentation. Do I have anything? Nope, that's it. Thank you guys for tuning in. You took my printer 3 breaks to print out my. Yo, dude, I went to the library and did it, and the yeah, dude, the printer took breaks. I went downstairs to Mike and he's like, "Holy fuck, Matt, what's that?" I'm like, "Oh, it's my capstone paper." And he's like, "Jesus Christ!" And I was talking to him like, "Dude, I want to get my paper bounded and get a little reform of that." He didn't say "Holy fuck," but he acted really surprised when he saw me on campus on a Friday because you can see him saying that. Yeah, dude, Mike's really chill. I love him. He's great. But anyway, that was the Ruination of Romance. Like I said, paper available in my Discord. I can also link it right here, I think. Oh yeah, I can link it. I may have like a command later to just paste this in chat. But like I said, 41-page read. You don't have to read it. You can also rewatch this VOD. It'll be available on YouTube. Available 24 hours after this is finished. So around 9 p.m. tomorrow. And of course, you can rewatch this on Twitch as much as you want. I will be timestamping the one on YouTube though, if you want to click through. Also, if you guys want, I can release my talk notes. I can release my talk notes, and then you can just like, if you see something interesting, you can just jump to that part in the video. But overall, actually, let's do a Q&A panel. I want to leave some time for Q&A. You guys have any questions? I get to practice fielding questions like a pro, as our professors like to call it. Oh, until then, I can share some of my experiences from a capstone night when we had to present in front of full auditorium people. Oh man, like one of our professors, he asked me a random left field question. He's like, "Oh, Schurz, he and many other revolutionaries took part in German politics. I'm sorry, American politics, following exile into America. Is there a reason why? Do we have to change our textbooks?" I'm like, "Well, it's because they didn't have the full opportunity to do so in Germany, but when they came here, because the American democracy was a little bit more developed and it was a little bit more participating, the Dr. Swag, yeah, it's Dr. Swaggy, because they're unable to do it in Germany, they were able to do it here in America though. So that's one reason why the democracy went out. Very pogs, very pogs. But yeah, any questions? I'll leave a little minute here for questions because just in case people have some long ones, some clarifications. I'm willing to also go all the way back to the context ones. Oh, and also another thing is that like, oh god, like I remember when I was looking at the panel, I was like, holy shit, I go after the breaks. So, like that whole first hour presentation, that was a lot. Oh yeah. Because it's I think what's also really beautiful is that it's a accumulation of my time at university, because I really get it really shows how much I've improved my research skills. I've improved my ability to find historical narratives, find patterns and trends, and analyze all of this entire period of European history to really find something we can take away. I've missed it, but in your opinion, do you think that Russo Revolution was connected to World War One? Absolutely, because I think that because of the nature of 1848, it shows that the constitutions have like way too much power still, right? Sorry, not constitution. The monarchies have too much power, and that it's based off their politics that really influence everything, and that let me say that Germany will become a constitutional monarchy. Austria becomes a constitutional monarchy. France is is a republic. England is a constitutional monarchy. Russia, coming into World War One, is the last absolutist monarchy in Europe, where all the power is in the crown. So not only is it outdated, but because it rules over such a large empire that's all connected, when Tsar Nicholas II introduces the Duma or a parliament, all these peasants, they don't know what to do. They don't understand how they're gonna like reform Russia on a social level that's gonna expand its entire empire. That was completely naive that they wanted to do that. But yeah, that's they're definitely connected to World War One, because I think also it plays into the idea of nationalism, because Bismarck keeps the idea of nationalism. He keeps the Budweiser tricolor with the black, red, and gold. And I think it definitely plays a part in how the Germans viewed themselves coming into World War One, because that whole idea of the special path and that Germany has experienced history unlike any other, and because of the experience, it shaped them to be better. You know, that's also something that Hitler adopts in World War Two. That's part of his propaganda argument. So hugely connected, hugely connected. I think 1848 is like, I think a factor that is underlying for not only World War One, but also World War Two in some regards. Meanwhile, the Bolshevik stuff starts happening a bit before World War One. Yes, that too, and it's because, you know, I don't think that in Germany in 1848 they briefly had to touch a little bit on the idea of the socialist uprising and all their quells and the developments in society. So because they were able to create a solution successfully, whereas my thanks for the question, thank you for the question, Galaxy. Sorry, no, thank you for the question. I am not grateful for your question at all. Yeah, boom, ooh, my stream. But anyway, yeah, the Bolsheviks, yeah, they weren't able effing fielding questions. Unfortunate. Should consume Galaxy as a reward for the decent question. Oh, maybe, perhaps. That's a lot of things I have to consume, because if it's, you know, it's an entire galaxy, and I'm just the fart cloud. But yeah, because there was no answer for socialism in 1848, Bolsheviks and Lenin's uprising completely could have gone differently if 1848 could have come up with a solution to the social problems and the uprising of the socialists. Thank you for the question, half a crumb. Ooh, I did it there. Do I get partial credit? Am I at a D now? Fielding questions like a professional, like a professor. Pog. I haven't had to dodge a question yet. That's the funny part. Because I remember there was this whole section of the paper. By the way, fielding questions like a pro is like a worksheet that we've been given at our university for like twice in a row now. And there's a section of what to do when you don't know how to answer the question, such as my research didn't really answer that question, but I'm gonna go ahead and assume based on XYZ this, or my research didn't really answer the question. Wait, what else are you supposed to say? My research didn't answer the question. It really focused on this. But that's something I'll address in my revisions. Yeah, that's another thing Dr. R like to promote. But anyways, yeah, any more questions before we end off for the night? I'm gonna go look for a raid on the other monitor. The other monitor. I feel like it should be a good and classy answer to someone to fuck off in an academic paper. That's your JD Hetzer. You missed all the fart TED talk. Oh, unfortunate. Don't worry. The thanks for the question. No, exactly. Don't worry. There'll be a VOD coming up here very soon. I'm gonna be about to end. You can rewatch. The first half of lecture is context. Second half is my actual research. Yeah, and it'll be available on YouTube 24 hours after today if you'll rather watch the YouTube version and all that good stuff. And I will have timestamps for the YouTube version, so it's a lot nicer. But anyways, thank you guys for tuning in. Let me see who's streaming. Ooh, I have not rated Reset in a while. Pog. Anyways, thank you guys for tuning in. I had a lot of fun doing this project, and I hope my enthusiasm and love for the subject has come out from this presentation. Here are my socials. You can follow me on my Instagram for more pictures of my minis. We'll be coming back tomorrow with Flesh Terrors. We're painting the models right now. Also, picture of my one of the heroes that I painted in the 40k general chat. You can follow my Discord and Twitter for more updates on our community. Make sure to go into roles and hit notifications if you'd like to get pinged. I only ping everyone for the live notifications, but aside from that, yes, das Bier house. Yes, very good. Thank you guys again. I had a lot of fun, and with this presentation, I'm glad to see a lot of people also came around to see what I'm studying. In my announcements, I have a copy of my thesis, so you can feel free to read it. Again, it's a heavy read, 41 pages. So, we'll watch the VOD or the videos if you want to get a better sense. But, anyways, I think we're about to be rated and be sent off. So thank you guys again for joining me today, and I hope you have fun on Reese's channel. She's doing a Lost Judgment right now. Ooh, very PogChamp. Anyways, I hope you all have a wonderful night. Thank you for stopping by, and I'll see you guys next week for another fart lecture. I don't know who's going to be on, but it'll be someone. Goodbye.
I'm fucking mad. Hey, Fart McButtface, how's it going? Oh, I finally did it. Holy shit. Oh my fucking... Oh my god. Welcome, Raiders. How's it going? We just got past a bullshit boss fight. Butt McButt ass. Dude, guys, I got fucking Fart McButt cheek earlier, and Fart Mc, I forgot what the other one was, but it was like Fart Mc something face. I was so mad.